pleasure to be with you and your team today.
It's so good to have you, Monica. So why don't we go ahead and Linda, let's go ahead and start the recording. We're going to go ahead and record this call. This way we can make it available for individuals from EO and other entrepreneurs that may want to get this information later. So I'm really excited this morning. My name is Dr. Betty Uribe, and I'm the CEO of Effectus Enterprises, DBA Dr. Betty. And I've been in the financial services industry for well over 25 years, and mainly in commercial. I've also been an entrepreneur since 1988. I've had several businesses in manufacturing and in automotive supplies and all kinds of different things. And so as an entrepreneur, going through this has been very interesting. And so I've got the back of the house and the front of the house, if you will, from financial services, as well as an entrepreneur. So what I'm trying to do is bring in as many resources that are right at the gut or at the heart of where the decisions are being made, so that we can get the very best information very quickly to all of you and to your employees. So today I'm really excited to open this particular town hall with Monika Mantilla. Monika has been one of my advisors in financial services, and she has helped a lot of my clients and a lot of my businesses in the past. And up until, well, you've been in business, Monika, for a long time, since 2005.
Started our own company in 2005, yes.
Several companies. So what you're gonna get from Monika is kind of a different view. It's a combination of SBA plus capital funding and what's really happening. What's really neat about Monika is she has been in discussions directly with the head of the SBA in really helping frame what the entrepreneurs really need in terms of capital. And we're going to be seeing some different trends as we're seeing in government right now, and as we're seeing in business. You're going to be seeing some different trends about on capital funding for businesses, where the government is teaming up with the private sector to actually fund companies and so forth. There's been some new legislature that just got approved yesterday, and I know, Monika, you've been on conference calls with the legislators this morning, early this morning, last night we've talked. And so you've got some hot off the press information for everyone, but
scrambling to find what the information really is, but we're navigating through it. There's a number of interesting ideas and thoughts, but hopefully we'll have it very soon fleshed out, and we can reconvene. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and as soon as we do, then we can definitely reconvene. So just as a matter of housekeeping, we're going to have another call tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. with Alan Gutierrez. Monika, you know Alan very well as well. And Alan is the Associate Administrator of the Office of Entrepreneurial Development for the Small Business Administration. He works right there with Jovita Carranza at the SBA in Washington, D.C. So between Monika today and Alan tomorrow, we should be able to get the entire picture of what is available for small business when it comes to capital funding, as well as the Small Business Administration, and what we can do. Throughout the call, you have the chat room, and many of you are familiar with the chat room. So we have my team, Linda and Morgan, are collecting the questions throughout the call. So I'm going to ask you, we have a PowerPoint presentation that they're going to show up. And then afterwards, we'll have an opportunity for you to ask questions. So we'll collect the questions through the chat room throughout the presentation. And then right after, then we will open it up for questions if any of you have some questions. If for any reason, we're going to go exactly 1 hour because I want to respect people's times and I want to respect Monika's time as well. So at exactly 11 o'clock, we will end the call. If you have any questions, put them in your chat room. We're going to collect all those questions. So Linda and Morgan will be collecting the questions. We're going to send them to Monika, and we'll get the questions answered and write back the answer to you. So don't fear if you have any questions. And then Monika, once we get all of the legislative decisions sorted out, then I'm going to ask you to come back possibly in the next week or so, so that we can get more clarity around this legislation.
And I think that I envy Alan, because he's going to have 24 hours to have looked through the law, right? My question to the SBA this morning, and we have this little war zone where we're keeping connected with a bunch of committed citizens, let's call it this way. And the number one question I have today is for those that are in dire need, right? How fast can the money go out? And we're actually trying to put out a vehicle that will hopefully be faster and be in advance. But that's, I think, the most important pressing question, Rod, for those vulnerable communities that need that money right now. When is it going to come out? And so ask Alan tomorrow. I want to know the answer too. So that's the question that is, there's a lot of good things happening. There's a big wallet. The thing is, when is it going to hit the accounts of mostly the vulnerable populations, the businesses that need the money to be able to produce the things that we have now in crisis. So yeah, but I think that the government is moving fast and Congress is moving fast. And we live in a country, I was born in Colombia. In Colombia, nobody bails you out. Here we have a government that has the ability to bail you out. So I think that the country will be definitely lifted with that great package that has been approved.
So Monika, why don't we go ahead and get started? One of the things that is really different about your company is normally capital funding companies focus on middle market organizations and large organizations. You have been focusing on both. You have a portfolio of businesses that you have personally funded, and you're staying very close to that portfolio. And then also you focus on the small business owner as well. So, and that's what makes you different and incredibly resourceful as it pertains to the people that we have on this call. So can you kind of begin by giving us a landscape of what you're seeing, because you've seen several downturns in the economy, this one being a little bit different, and then what we can expect, and then how things, how the landscape seems to be quite a bit different these days with government and the private sector kind of uniting.
Yes, and so thank you, Betty. And so I'm delighted to be with entrepreneurs, because I always want to meet with entrepreneurs, and that is our business, right? I always say we cook in a kitchen with 4 ingredients: great entrepreneurs that are running great companies that need the right capital that we can provide, and the right strategic resources and corporate connections so they can grow. So it's a pleasure to be with you all today. Betty, thank you for your leadership. We've been friends for many years. We've exchanged many notes at the private level, at the professional level. And so, and I think that we were talking this morning with some friends, in this market, there's no time for new connections. So we're all tapping into the people we trust and we believe that can deliver. And so I'm really pleased to be here with you today. Just very shortly, what I do is private equity, right? I'm a managing partner with a private equity and private debt fund. We have a vehicle with 147 million under management. And as Betty was saying, we're lower middle market. So we do middle market companies, but also the smaller side. What small means for us is $1 million and more in EBITDA. So right now we have a portfolio of 9 companies in the last fund that we've built. And we're in the process of building a few ones, right? In private equity, that's what you do. You get some capital, you invest it well, and then you get more capital. Our investors are institutional investors. And Betty was saying, my capital. I wish it would be my capital, but it's the capital. We have a little bit of that, but it's mostly institutional investors that come to us because we have a method of building value with small businesses. So we're always trying to identify that great entrepreneur that we can add value and then help them with capital and corporate relationships. In doing this work, what's happened is that I also happen to be in the board of the United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, in the board of the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Initiative, and I've advised the $1 Billion Roundtable, that is a group of 28 of the largest corporations in America, and they have thousands of suppliers, right? So it's right from the healthcare industry, consumer industry, manufacturing, OEMs, a number of industries around the country. And so what the ecosystem we're working on every day is thousands of business owners, hundreds of thousands of business owners, and we're always trying to select the best and put them in our portfolio, of course, in a very selfish way. That's what we do, right? We select them so we can help them grow. But what we've tried to do is take all these best practices of private equity and share them in the market with smaller firms or with firms that are not working with private equity funds, and help them institutionalize, right? So they learn to work with organizations like ours. And in the middle of this crisis, for example, you imagine when this is starting to hit, we're thinking about our portfolio companies, some in consumer, some in retail, some in manufacturing, some in corporate services. And every one of those businesses is absolutely changing in every way, right? Some things are going up, like we have some businesses, for example, consumer goods and durable goods. We have everybody's wanting to buy a second refrigerator. So anybody who's selling those types of goods, revenues are going up. We have bread manufacturers that then are, having accelerated growth because they need to be in more and more supermarkets. So it's an interesting market where there's so many variables but everything is moving for everyone, right? And so what we came up, we sort of, thought through this, and we have, a number of plans to think about crisis, and many of those are not applicable, right, to the type of crisis we're living now. So it's interesting to adjust them. And what we did is we did a matrix to be able to help companies think in a systematic way. And we're having phone calls and trying to, navigate in a very person to person, how can I help you type of conversation with all of our entrepreneurs, all of our business owners. And of course, there's an elevated anxiety, concern. People don't know what their supply chain is going to look like. People don't know whether they need to furlough their employees or keep them. There's all these dynamics. And so we're going to go through a presentation that we're trying to hold the hand of business owners to be able to give them a very hands-on small business. It's not this McKinsey thing that nobody can do at the small level, but it's a very hands-on entrepreneurial approach. And what we're doing is we're asking our entrepreneurs to fill out a survey every week. And we'll go through that. So hopefully it's a process that when you think about your business, you guys probably are already thinking about all these questions, but we're trying to do it in a very systematic way. And what we're doing is a heat map. So we actually have the yellow, the green, and the red, right? Yellow are those types of things that are not really moving. Red are things that are in crisis right now with these conditions. And green are actually things that are working better than they did before because of the market. So we'll go through that. And so the idea is to be able to share with a much broader universe the type of tools that we're implementing and making accessible to our portfolio companies.
So those tools are going to, I know that you're doing this for your portfolio companies, but I'm going to be selfish a little bit. And I'm going to ask, is that something that we can share with our entrepreneurs at EO so that they can also anticipate, when they go to get funding, capital funding? One of the things that I found in
Yes.
In finances, people would come to me, but they couldn't articulate it. And so there's a formulaic way to do this. Is that something that we can ask you?
Yes. I think very differently. I'll tell you a story, a personal story. My husband and I are partners, right? And my husband is a banker, 30 years, a typical banker. And I've been in corporate America. I've been an entrepreneur. I'm also a lawyer. But I think that my DNA is to be in social change. I believe that capital should be utilized to better our societies, to better our people, our families, our societies. So we joke when he says, I'm in private equity, I said, well, I'm in social change. But I utilize private equity tools, right, to be able to better societies and better companies. So yes, we share our tools because that is part of our DNA. We're an impact fund. And so we have a commitment to high quality job creation. We have a commitment to investing in women and minorities. We have a commitment to investing in LMI. And we track them and we report. This is not like a nice story. We actually track all of this and report it. And we're very happy to say that our numbers are always exceeding what we commit. So happy to share with you the tools. I know I shared with Linda a presentation, and I'm glad to share that. One thing you asked Betty that I forgot to mention was what's different from last crisis and this crisis, right? Because I think that sometimes we're like, as entrepreneurs, we're thinking about what we need to do to protect our business, to protect our employees, and of course that's our first line. But I think it's also important to take a step back and think about the macro of what environment are we in and what is changing. I've been telling people the world is not going to fall apart. The world is not going to end, but the world is going to transform the way we know it. And I think something that's been happening that I absolutely love, and I hope that every one of us leaves the crisis embracing that, is the spirit of collaboration. It is just amazing to see how, like, we're trying to put up a manufacturing facility in Michigan to do 1 million masks a week to be able to deliver, but we don't have the materials. And so somebody's calling us and saying, but I think we can get the materials. And here we are calling Colombia, Mexico, also because there's a scarcity of certain resources and there's a dire need for certain others. So we're living in market conditions that are very different. And I think that cooperative, systematic approach to figuring out who has what to share is just going to put us in a better situation, right? So it's not a market of...
As you get some of those, Monica, I would ask that you share with us, because we have a large group in the EO family of entrepreneurs that have resources and that have sought out resources. There are a lot of people that are reinventing themselves and kind of moving some of their manufacturing. Maybe they were manufacturing clothing and now they're manufacturing. We're seeing some of that in the news.
Yes, yes.
Like family, and it would be just great to be able to offer some of that.
Come in and be part of it. Absolutely. Yeah. So you know what? I'm in these networks, right? So NMSDC has 12,000 companies. LBAN, we have 580 companies. With USHEC, we have 4.5 Hispanic business owners, of which like 90,000 are more than $1 million in revenue. So I think we all need to integrate each other. We're all the small business and the middle market, the lower middle market business. So I think we need to find ways to integrate. And yes, I'm all for that, because it's just more resources, right? So right now we're trying to look for all the materials to be able to do surgical masks and surgical gowns. If any one of you has any information, please reach out to me. But going back to the macro, right? Like, one, a new way to collaborate. And two, I want to share a story. I was part of the programs in the last recession, and we actually worked very closely with a number of large asset management firms, large banks, and the U.S. Treasury in putting out a number of these TARP programs. As all of you recall, remember we had TARP programs, the Trouble Asset Relief programs, and then we were part of CPP, we were part of PPIP, and we delivered great returns to government and to investors. But what was different, and what I'm seeing that was different, is that at that time we had a financial crisis. We had a banking and Wall Street crisis, and therefore the majority of the solutions were geared towards that, right? Of salvaging the CMBS, RMBS market, salvaging the banking system. Today, and we didn't have the connectivity we have today. We didn't have the technology tools we had today. We didn't have the capacity that we have today. I think that small and middle market business owners have elevated their capacity dramatically in the last decade, because technology has enabled us to do things that before only the very large could do. And actually today, if you're well capitalized, very well equipped, you actually have the ability to be much more nimble than a larger firm. So I think that there's a competitive advantage in being a small or a middle market company. And I would hope that as we're seeing all these packages come out, that we're going to see a tremendous amount of efficiency in the way collaboration happens. And I think that aggregating all these networks and saying, here we are, like, we have the Corporate Growth Association, ACG. That's a middle market organization that unites, maybe many of you are part of ACG. There's the SBIA industry that I'm part of, is the group of private equity and private debt funds. So there's all these clusters that hopefully through this are coming together. And so I see there's a difference in the last recession. I think this one will require more rebuilding because we have a crisis at the health level. We have a crisis at the supply chains level, in addition to the financial. But the good news, I think.
So Monica, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
Some questions already, and
Yes.
I'd like to get right to the tactical portion of an entrepreneur. So if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm looking to get some funding, for example, one of the questions that was asked was, I'm looking to let go of some of my people, and maybe I can furlough some of my people, but the new legislation has the new deadline of April 1st. Right. Do I wait? Do I have to wait? Am I going to be able to, because the effective date is April 1st, am I going to be able to bridge that? Or how do I handle something like that? And then maybe what we can do is maybe open it up for some questions directly to the team, because I'd like to spend most of the rest of the time on questions directly.
Sure. And I just want to say massive rebuilding is what we're going to have at hand, right? But the short-term question, to your point, Betty, is the short-term liquidity, right? And what are the decisions with regard to financial management that we need to be aware of the options and evaluate them, and then navigate through that. And we have an option that just came out at 2 a.m. last night. So we're in the process of evaluating that option. And here's what we've been listening and trying to assess with our portfolio companies. First, we had March 16, or somewhere around March 16, the SBA came out with a bailout package, right? So we had $18 billion that the Administrator Carranza and her team said, we are going to bail out 30 million small business owners. And she said, this is the first time in the history of this country that we have as client base every small business owner in this country that will not be able to meet payroll or any direct expense because of the halt in the revenue that they're getting, right? So there was all this program that came out that is the disaster relief program, that if Linda, you can do me a favor, we can put the slide up on the second page. So this program is one that is online and directly to the SBA. So we've been keeping track, and it'd be very interesting to hear from this group if any of you have actually, so go to the next, we can come back to this, the risk matrix that we were talking about later, but leave it, yes, there. So this is the website for the SBA is sba.gov/disaster. And these are the 6 forms. The 7th one is if you're in Puerto Rico that you have to fill out, but you can print them and send them, but you can actually do it online. So online, you scroll down, and you get through all of these forms. And so we've been, having town halls to understand if anyone has received money. So it'd be very interesting if you guys through the chat, you could say like who has applied and who has received money, because I'll tell you what we're hearing. Many people have applied. I have not heard the first company that has received money yet.
And that is correct. There's somebody that on the chat said that they had applied back in March, mid-March, and they still haven't heard anything.
And did you hear when will it be processed? Because we're hearing the best news that we've heard is that they've been getting an email saying it's in process and expect that in 20 days you will be assigned somebody to evaluate. So we're talking about, horizons of time. Typically, these disaster loans get put out in 40 days. I did hear Administrator Carranza making hey, how can we do this in 40 days, right? When if you go through a fintech, you can have an answer in an hour, right? Or even less, right? Some have like instantaneous answers once you put in the info. So, but this is what we have today, right? We just have, so I'm hearing can't upload files. So I both emailed, I applied for SBA disaster loan last week. I received one email back asking me to unfreeze my credit. That happens very frequently. That's a very important point, and we've heard it from many. If you're going to apply, make sure your credit is not frozen, because you can't process it because it's frozen. So unfreeze it first for a 30-day period and then, or 60-day period, and go back and apply. What else are we hearing in the chat? I'm about to apply, but I've been told that you can't apply for both. Yes, that is correct. That is the same thing we've been hearing, and this is very important, right now that we know there are two potential lanes, right? There's the lane of the disaster relief, which is what came out early, because that was the only authority the SBA had, right? That's the programs that they've had in place for whenever there are hurricanes, disasters, right? And now they were going to Congress to try and get another set of programs. So now what we've been hearing, and again, this is all fluid, and now we need to read the last version that came out and make sure, and I've been going through it. It seems as if it's very, very similar to the one we got Sunday night. But here's the synthesis, right, of what is out there new, is that there will be a 7A loan program. The program will be up to 10 million is what we're hearing. And I haven't seen the number yet in the last version, so don't.
And that's really good, because up until now, that program has been up to 2 million, correct?
Up to 5 is what I understand,
okay.
Right. So there's been like a mini, up to 350,000, and then there's one up to 5, and now it's going to be up to 10. Now the disaster relief is up to 2. So I think every firm has to sit down with their banker, if they have one, and navigate through the options, is my recommendation. So it seems as if you have a good banking relationship, and even so more, if you've had a 7A loan, the best door to knock is your banker, because all of these bankers now have this privilege to help you, and they have a relaxed 7A that is going to be available in an easier way for those that already have a relationship, right? Because it's difficult when people are beginning to build a relationship. It's going to take a while to get that, right? But if they already know you, if you already have a line of credit, it just hopefully is going to be a much more expedited process. And I've been talking to the bankers at Wells, at Bank of America, at City National, at JP Morgan, and we have a number of relationships with City National in LA, with First Republic, with First Bank in Puerto Rico. So we talk to a lot of banks. Every banker is now looking at this to see how they put it out in the hands of the business owners. It seems as if the personal guarantee is not going to be necessary. So that was a big hurdle on the regular 7A. It seems as if the terms will be longer. And then there's this element that we're trying to get our hands a hold, but in the last version that we heard Sunday night, if you kept your employees for 4 months, the loan would convert into a grant. But now there's the concept of the furlough in the last piece that we've heard. So we're trying to understand that. And that is why, depending on where you are and what size you're in, what banking relationship you have, again, my recommendation, and this is what we've been telling like our portfolio companies, ask a meeting in 2 days, let them time to read, let every organization like set up and structure themselves to be able to put out these packages. The bankers are very avid, right? Everybody's wanting to put out that money, and everybody knows that there's a dire emergency to put out that money.
I don't understand it. I mean, the law just passed. So what about if somebody has already submitted an application? Does that mean that they're kind of out of luck? In a couple of
that is a question that we have out, Betty, because if they already put out an application and the 7A seems to be a better formula, very especially because it carries a grant component that this doesn't, I would imagine that the SBA internally, and you can ask Alan this very specific question tomorrow, for people that have already applied but believe that the 7A, can you just do an internal transfer? Right? Can the banker just take your information and now analyze a 7A solution? So that is not
that is possible. You know what I'll do is I'll send him a quick text and see if I can get that answer before the end of this call. He knows that we're having this call right now, so
that would be spectacular.
And for the SBA, because that seems to be a question for several of you.
And what is the quickest money out there with everything that's out? Will the disaster money be quicker, or will the 7A Express be quicker? I think about like my portfolio companies. They could live 6 months without new cash because they're in good situation, right? They're solid companies with CFOs with very solid business models. But my deepest fear, and I just can't sleep until I start to hear that thing. Imagine people that they have a small business that is a 50,000 a year revenue business. And then now they're getting zero revenue. And so they really, they're locked in their houses and they're not getting any revenue. And so how are they going to go to the supermarket next week? So for all of those that we have the privilege of having a cushion, that's not a problem. But there's a very large segment of the population, because small business is the majority of our economy, that are in that arena, that are not going to be able to get cash. So for me, the first line of response is anything that we need to attack COVID, and anything we need to put people food at the table. So it'd be great to ask SBA, what is their sense of when will the first checks be arriving and how? And then, you know, like what we're telling our companies, think about 30, 60, 90-day cash flow. But what we're telling our companies as well, and I would give the same advice to you, think about this year as a year of crisis from now until the end of the year, right? It's like it's a new deal. And so we sort of need to rehash our business models and be as cash rich and cash liquid as we can, because we need to anticipate changes in revenue, changes in supply chain, changes in employees. And we're also, because we're an impact fund and we believe in this, we are asking every company to make every effort to keep their employees. And if they had temporary, to keep them going, even if they say, look, I need to let you go, but in 60 days, right? Do it in a way that is compassionate, right? And I know sometimes these decisions can be very hard when cash is short, right?
There's a question that was asked a little earlier, and then I'll go to Mustaza's question next. But the question was, and I know you and I talked about this very early this morning, if someone is, because of their model, their business model, they're turning to a new model, they're turning to something brand new, and they're forming a brand new company to do something different. Is the SBA a place that they can go to if it's a brand new company, a brand new wing of their company, or what should they do?
I've had a lot of startups asking me that question, because if you're, you know, all of this seems to be based on historical cash flow, right? And if you have a company that is pre-revenue or just beginning, right, there's not going to be a lot there to be able to demonstrate. So I don't have the answer, but we're seeking for an answer. And I think that another great question to ask Alan, and we can, like when we synthesize these, like so you can talk to Alan, please share with me, because I'm very interested in the question of, is there any new startups or new business money? Everything that I've heard as of now is more related to businesses that are going on, right? That are receiving revenue, that have payroll, and that there's a hardship. But if you're a startup, and you were having a cost structure that now you need to continue to pay, and you're not going to have the revenue, you always knew you didn't have the revenue, there must be a way. So I think that is for startups and pre-revenue companies. It's a question that I still don't have an answer, and I have thousands of people asking for this. I heard, for example, in Germany, there was a specific bailout for startups. And so I would hope that because trillions of dollars are going to go out into the market, if not Treasury, the SBA should put together some startup program, but there isn't clarity around that, unfortunately, yet, Betty.
There's another question. So somebody recently got approved for a 7A loan and also applied for a new loan last week. Because they already got approved for one loan and they applied for a bigger, will the SBA build up a brand new loan for them, or are they just going to increase what they already have?
So I think that's a question that you need to field with your banker, right? And I know that banker is now going to have all these directives of a new format of 7A. And so what we've been hearing is, for example, some people just utilized all the line and they don't really have creditability today to do it. But it seems as, because these are emergency monies, predicated on an emergency, then the typical analysis of cash flow is different, because now the analysis is how short are you that you were not, and what so I heard from James Rivera.
Then when you're talking to your banker, then it's going to be more critical for you to put together a quick pro forma, an accurate living pro forma of exactly what you're seeing in your accounts receivable, exactly what you're seeing that is not coming in. So the way and Monica, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm looking at it from a financial banker's perspective would be, what is it that you had coming, and then the bottom fell out, and what is it that you're not having, and what is that deficit that you need to make up?
Right.
And that's
And
exactly looking to make it, correct?
James Rivera, that is the head of all the disaster relief programs at the SBA, that he was in one of our town halls. He explained it more than the analysis of revenue. He said, this is for the disaster loans, right? They were trying to see which expenses do you have, direct expenses, payroll expenses, and other expenses that if the disaster wouldn't have happened, you would have had money to pay for them. So that's the gap that they want to be able to close. With a 7A, I think that they're assuming also that it's a type of company that is a little bit larger, that already has a banking relationship. And I think
a little bit larger, how large?
So SBA loans are only available for small businesses. So the definition of small business, and I know this because we are an SBIC fund, and so we can only invest, we have capital from the SBA as an SBIC fund, and we can only invest in small businesses. So you will see the definition of what small is. It's a NAICS code type of definition. And so depending on your NAICS code, there is a specific definition of revenue or employees. So you need to know your NAICS code, and you can just Google this. What is your NAICS code, and what would, if you would be qualified as a small business? Now that is something your banker, like once you tell him your industry, your NAICS code, and your revenue and employees, they should tell you quickly if you qualify or not. But the good news is, what we think as small business, the SBA definition of small is pretty big. Like you can have 500 million revenue companies and 500 employee companies, but in their industry, they categorize, they qualify as a small business. So that's a definition. So if you qualify as a small business, then you qualify as a 7A for a 7A loan. If you don't, in the last crisis, and I would imagine this is going to happen again, like we're looking at dozens of companies that are not small business, defined as small business, but they still need a bailout, right? Because on the one side you have the small businesses, on the other side you have the airlines and the industrial, big format, big company type of bailouts. But then there's all the middle, and usually Treasury will put some sort of financing forms that probably they'll put through the banks to be able to finance companies that are middle market, don't classify under small, but still need a bailout, need capital and liquidity.
I want to let everybody know that this particular page with all, and thank you so much for all of these resources that you're giving us, Monika. We're going to send that out to everybody in EO and to the rest of the group. We're going to send it out separately also so that you all have access to all of these resources. Just want to make sure that you all have that.
And for any one of you, I don't know if any of you would qualify as a sole proprietor. So the next page gives you the list for disaster loans. Again, I want to qualify. These are the disaster loan. What is up to today, right? They could today set up a streamlined and easier one, and then we have a new website, right? So this is all in change. But as of yesterday, right? These were the forms of the disaster loan. So it's just 3 forms, and actually 2 or 3 if you're in Puerto Rico, to be able to apply as a sole proprietor. So it's even simpler. And then the 7A process, you should ask your banker to share with you all the criteria. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, and if you make an invite, please send me a note saying that you're part of this group, because I typically don't accept people that I don't know. But if you put Betty or Betty's panel or something around that, then I can accept you. And then you'll see all the links. I'm putting the link, for example, to your regional offices. So people link and get the regional SBA office. That's a very valuable tool. If you don't have a banking relationship, there's a link so that you can go online and find a banking relationship. You put there that you'll receive an email saying, here's 3 bankers that you can reach out, and they actually reach out to you. They receive the information as well. And so there's a number of, and then there's some town halls that we've done with Secretary Carranza and her team that are posted there as well. There's a bunch of info, and I'm just trying to do, I'm terrible at putting articles in LinkedIn, but these times call for these types of things. So I'm just putting it out there as I see information that we put in the hands of our portfolio companies. I'm also putting there on the LinkedIn page. If we go, what I'd like to do, Betty, if it's okay with you, I think it's very useful to look at the heat map that we've created for our portfolio companies. It's a very useful tool, and you'll all get this presentation. It's on the first page. Let's go to the first page.
As we go to that page, let me just make a real quick clarification. You said NAICS code. Is that the NAIC code?
Yes, NAICS code, correct. NAIC, NAICS code. That is the national, you know what it stands for? I don't even know what it stands for, but it's like that industrial category that denominates your business. And then the SBA per NAICS code decides if you're a small business or not.
Okay.
NAIC. Okay. So this is what we built as the crisis was emerging. So it's a navigation and response matrix that covers all these elements that are very different in every company, right? But these are standard parameters that no matter what industry you're in, there's some considerations around it. So first and foremost, workforce. So just quickly to go through some tips in the conversations we've been having. Is your workforce okay? Is your workforce adequately protected? Are you having the resources, expert resources, to ensure that if your workforce is somehow exposed, that they have the protective wear, that they have the emotional and physical competitiveness and support to be able to continue to be out there? If they're working virtually, are you, checking on them to make sure that they have the computer, the phone, and just like making sure, right, that workforce is well protected. And we're inviting people to not only think about people that were full-time employees, but very importantly, those that are temporary, that might be on the cold now, right? That you could say, hey, look, I'm going to send you a check and it's for future services or something, so that the workforce is protected. Because if we protect people, all the rest sort of flows, right? So number one, the most important thing, protect your people, then be in communication with them. Then the revenue, right? What is being lost and what could be ramped up? There's a whole new consideration around net revenue. Then how are your operations being affected by all of this crisis? And thinking about 30, 60, 90 days. And it's very interesting as we're getting the heat map from our companies. It's all like, today it's okay, but tomorrow we anticipate it's going to be red, right? So it's all this evolving and changing, but what ramifications, what type of consequences are going to be there for your operations, for your supply chain, right? Many supply chains are halted, many things coming from China, they were stopped, and then they're coming again and they're stopped again. And now there's all this drive to be able to produce in the United States. So what are the consequences in supply chain and logistics that you might have in your company? Do you have business interruption insurance? And if so, does it include pandemic? And if having those conversations with your insurance brokers, with your lawyers, and if you don't have one, consider having one in the future that includes pandemics. It's a new reality we're all living. Contingency plan reassessments. As I was mentioning before, many of our contingency plans were in case of a hurricane, right? In case of, we didn't consider a pandemic. So these new realities we're living in are, things that we need to reassess contingency plans. The most important part, perhaps, is number 7, liquidity. Cash is king, right? If you don't have the cash to operate, you will die, or at least you'll be dormant, right? And so you'll be paralyzed. So planning liquidity, being very judicious about examining every cash in and every cash out, and planning very appropriately for 30, 60, 90 days. And if you have a revolver, if you have some line of credit, anticipate your next 90 days. And, if you were planning on 60, anticipate on 120. We're just saying people think ahead, because, for example, there might be considerations. We were talking this morning with a company that their materials are usually, they have in stock 3 months, and we're telling them put in stock 6 months because we don't know what's going to happen. So, but it's a liquidity issue, right? If you have the money, you can do it. If you don't have, but think 30, 60, 90 days liquidity plan. And then, of course, this will be what money can you tap into in this disaster? So will it be the disaster or will it be the 7 loan? My suggestion, to be practical on that, is talk to your banker, look at all the 7A, and if that doesn't work for you for some reason, then you have the disaster, right? But again, it's a conversation. Every company needs to be evaluating their own situation. And I'm happy to, as there are specific questions and things that you're going through Betty, let's navigate to just make sure that everybody ends up in the right place. The virtual world that we're living in, what implications does that have for your business, for your clients, for your operations, etc. A stakeholder communications plan. Make sure you hold the hand of your employees, of your suppliers, very importantly, of your revenue generators, of your clients, and give them the sense of you're ready to do business, is my sense. If you can, and you are, tell them we're here, we're rethinking, and this is how I can help, right? Because everybody now needs a whole set of things that they didn't need before. And so I think that state of readiness and that nimbleness of entrepreneurs is going to shine in these times of change. Any other challenges that apply to, very specific businesses, depending on yours. And very, very, very importantly, this is my favorite one, the one that gives us hope, and where the entrepreneurial spirit shines, is new opportunities arising from changing markets. New opportunities arising from the virus that we need to attack right now, and the support that our hospitals and our retailers need. And so I think that from crisis comes opportunity, and to be in a very systematic way thinking, how can I reshuffle so that I can transition effectively and take advantage of innovation and opportunity. So that was the navigation map. And then for every one of them, keep a red, yellow, or green, right? Because then you're focusing on the reds and making sure that the yellows and the greens keep on the same track. But then you have a heat map of, okay, I'm not well in these two. Then you spend some time on it, you delegate on it, and then it just sort of allows you to have a dashboard and a way to, effectively manage your plan. So I'd love to hear some thoughts about it. Does it make sense for your business?
Yeah.
Already, Alan, about how slow the system is. Mm-hmm.
I like it. I've been kind of monitoring the questions and so forth, and it seems like it's really, really slow. So some people are saying the SBA program maybe go at midnight and try to do it at odd hours, when
2 a.m. Yeah.
nor the west, and 2 a.m. seems to be a good time, 2, 3 a.m. at least. So does anybody else, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for Q&A. Monica, thank you so much. This is really good, tangible information for everyone. And I am going to hold you to this. So once we figure out the legislative landscape, I think it's going to be really important to get you back in here. Some people are saying that they've connected with their SBA bankers while we're on the call, and the SBA bankers are saying, well, we don't have the information yet. And exactly, they don't have the information yet. And this is why I wanted to get you, Monika, on the call so that everybody here gets the information. Even now, you can begin to plan ahead, knowing what's coming in terms of the legislation and knowing what's coming. So as you find out more and we have substantial information to share, I'm going to ask you to come back in.
And my suggestion would be make appointments with your banker for next Monday, so they have enough time to go through this, to understand, and you have an appointment with them, because they're going to get very busy very quickly. You want to be ahead of the line.
Yeah, real quick, a clarifying question for Michael. On the 7A loan, does that request that no furloughs or layoffs, or can you have some furloughs or some layoffs and still have the 7A, or should we just lay off on any of these?
So we should ask Alan to get the latest, but my understanding is that there is an incentive if you don't fire anyone.
I understand.
But there's also, for furlough people, there's a protection, right? Because they lost their job because of this. So I think it's something that I want to provide an answer in the next 24 hours. I'm going to do the banker question, because I don't know. We need to navigate through this last law and make sure that, because that is a question that everybody's asking themselves right now. Shall we?
My understanding also that there is an incentive if you have not furloughed anyone, but
that's what the Congress wants to clarify that, what Congress wants to make sure, they want to incentivize the conservation of employment. And
Yes.
so they want to make every effort of that you can keep your people, and they're happy to send the money so that you can keep your people. So, and I think that's a good thought, right? Because imagine people unemployed and the mindset of I've just been fired in the middle of all of this and I've been fired. So
Yeah.
for God's sake, I think that make every effort to not fire anyone, and or maybe say, look, I'm going to pay you half, right? Or, but I'm going to keep you, because then you're going to open up for business. You're going to need people, right? So it's like
Yeah.
sort of trying to keep the chain going while we go through this crisis.
Yeah. Wonderful. Some people are asking privately, are we having another call? I will be having another call tomorrow morning, Pacific time, 9 a.m. We're trying to get the call-in number and so forth. If we can get it before this call, fine. If not, we'll just get it to the EO administrators and so forth, and then we'll get it to the other groups separately. But definitely we'll get that for you. At this point, if anybody would like to unmute and if you have any questions directly for Monika, then go ahead. If you want to put them in the chat, if that's more comfortable for you, go ahead. We have 4 more minutes left on the call, so we have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions.
Betty, I just have a comment. This is absolutely so valuable. I run a company and so many questions Monika was able to answer. I must thank you, and all the people in the group, I'm sure, share the same sentiment. You are very articulate, Monika. Love to have you back.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You know, in these times of pain, it's so wonderful to be able to give back. And so this is, it's a joy for me as well. And we're in this together.
Yep. Yes, we are. Thank you, Monika. You're so generous with your information. Anybody else have any questions that you'd like to ask at this point? Okay, what I'm going to do then, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the call. So this has been Monika Mantilla, and a very generous individual who's just here to give back, not to take anything, but just really to give back and to provide information to all of us. We're going to ask Monika to come back in about a week or so once we get the legislature landscape a little bit more clear and we can clarify some of these questions for all of you.
But I do have a motive, you know, one, you're all going to be better off, right? Hopefully. And then the best and brightest, I always want to invest in them. So
Thank you.
The call is being recorded and we're going to make the call available to you. So for those of you who are from EO, we'll get that directly to the administrators at EO. And for those of you who are not on EO, you'll find it on YouTube. We'll go ahead and put this on YouTube. This way it can be available for other people.
Betty, if I may, let me leave a concept with all of you that has to do with the longer term planning, right? If COVID wouldn't have happened and Betty would have invited me to speak to you guys, my story would have been entirely different, right? My story would have been like we have for business owners, what is called the GREAT model, right? So there's the G, the R, the E, the A, and the T stand for the 5 ways in which you can deploy capital. But I want you to think about long-term. We need to manage crisis, but it gives us hope and that resilience to think about the long-term. So think about not only the disaster money you need for the 30, 60, 90 days, but very importantly, think about your business model. Will it need scalability now? How much money will that be? Do you need to refinance what you've had? And there might be a phenomenal opportunity to refinance your capital structure today because there's going to be a lot of cheap money out there. So it's a fantastic opportunity to refinance, expanding, taking your existing product and can you pivot in some other good or service where you can capitalize on what you've had now and expand into another level. Very importantly, acquisitions. Can you acquire or be acquired? And is that something that you need to seriously consider and as you move forward? And then transition. Maybe many of our business owners have created, you know, first, second, third generation family businesses, and they were in the process of selling. And now they're like, so what do I do? So I think the bus is not going to stop. You know, companies like ours, private equity funds like ours are actually cash rich, wanting to help people. So there's a lot of business opportunities that I want you to keep in mind long term. Think about mergers, think about acquisitions, think about transition plans. And organizations like ours and many other private equity funds with this mindset are there to be able to support you as capital partners and strategic partners, because what we want to do is provide capital, but also strategic partnerships with corporate America. And
so Monika, that's a really good way to end the call, because in each of those areas, I have been thinking about different people that we can bring to all of you to help educate on the different parts of the business cycle.
Sure.
So we'll be bringing in more subject matter experts. And Monika, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
And thanks.
My pleasure. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Let's do what we do. Everybody put your hand there. Bye-bye. I want to see pictures and take a picture. We need to take a picture because we're going to laugh about these moments. Okay, hold on a second. I want to take you guys a picture.
This is Linda, and I do have the call-in information for tomorrow morning's 9 o'clock. So if everybody can just stay on, I'll post it here in the chat.
Oh, wonderful. Okay.
Wonderful.
And then
Nice to meet you all.
I see some people smiling. I guess you better smile again because we're going to take another picture. Ready? Set,
there you go.
Go. All right. Up. There's another one. Wait. Show yourself. Ready, set, and go. Yay. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
All the best. Be well and be safe. Bye-bye.
Yes, be safe. So Linda's going to be putting the
yeah, just stay on a couple minutes and I will add this to the chat room here.
Okay. Sounds good, Linda. Thank you so much.
And then we'll be sure to get that to Robin and get this out again.
If anybody has any other questions or think of other questions that you want to ask of Alan tomorrow, go ahead and shoot them over to me. We're on that chat group on EO and the other chat group for those of you who are not on EO. Feel free to send us the questions. Linda's going to collect all the questions for us, and Megan, and get that done. So, oh, there it is. There's the Zoom link. So if you want to grab that Zoom link and put it in your file, you might just want to grab it now. Otherwise, we'll get it to you anyway. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Megan, for making this happen. And we will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
All right, and everybody, there's the call-in number there as well. If you need that.
Oh, perfect.
They can copy the whole thing right there. And then we'll also make sure it gets sent out to everyone as well.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.